Today, our guest is a principal QA software engineer. So please help me welcome Maria Bettina Villondo, or who I endearly call her as Ate May. Hi, Ate May. How are you?
Hi, Earl. Thank you for inviting me to your show.
So for our international audience, why I call her Ate. Ate is a Philippine honorific to call an older woman out of respect. She is also one of my mentors in my career in the IT industry. So I started as a software tester, and I'm actually glad to have you here in this talk. So being a software QA engineer, is this the path that you decided that you wanted to take while you were still young?
No, not really. To be truthful, I just decided, okay, computer engineering at that time was a growing field, right? And I want to be in that kind of industry. So when I started, during the time when you get hired by a company, you do everything from development to testing to deployment.
Mm.
It's like an all-in-one thing for engineers. I would say I didn't really enjoy it. I started questioning myself, is this the industry that I want to be in? And during that time, I would say that it wasn't. I decided to stop working in the computer industry and look for other industries. So I did some searching, and in between, I would admit that I think like more than 2 years, I searched other industries. And at one point, I even started looking, switching to healthcare. But then somehow the computer industry started calling me again. I started getting interested and I started going back to school, like getting additional courses, trying to apply for jobs. But this time, I focused on the QA industry. And that's how I started being a QA. Eventually, I started to love it. And now, yeah, it's history.
Well, that's actually interesting because for those who are taking the IT industry, the most common path that they want to take is to become a software developer. But
Right.
you
Yes.
are unique that you would like to take software quality assurance. What do you think that was the most appealing to you?
For me, because it depends on each person's point of view, right? As a developer, you focus on certain area of the project because you cannot work on all the components of a certain product, right? And maybe if you do some testing, you do some unit testing. However, in QA, you look at the whole picture. You look at the whole product and then you need to understand how it works end to end. And you need to understand everything from UI, from database, how does the user use it. Then there's also different phases in testing. You need to do like alpha, beta. So QA is also a very challenging niche to go into. It's not just like you understand the product, that's it, and you do black box testing. You also need to understand how data flows and how your product can be like a very stable one and very user friendly one. You also need to take into consideration the non-functional part. You need to consider security. How easy is it for someone to hack into your product? And also you need to consider performance and high availability of your product. And you also have this API testing that you can
Yes.
do. It's like a very big scope that you need to cover when you're in QA.
And that's the reason why I chose to take software testing because with technology, in which I would say that it's going to be a reality that almost all people are going to use software products, and testing is very crucial and very diverse. Now, what are your most memorable challenges as a QA tester?
What I find memorable is when I had these opportunities to lead a team of QA engineers. Because aside from having that opportunity, I am able to, like what you said, mentor different QA engineers who are just starting in the industry. And it's so nice to see them grow from one with no experience and then ending up with something that will help them grow on how to become better QA engineers. I think that's my most memorable one.
I would say that I really appreciate what you have taught me back then, and
Thank you.
I was able to impart one person who was actually new in the testing industry. And also, as far as my current work, testing is still a vital part of the role that I'm doing, but I am now doing more of customer support.
Oh,
So
customer service.
yes, I actually deal with clients who have questions or issues when they're working on a product. I'm still glad that testing remains vital no matter how small or how big the role is in the company, because any IT product is a product that needs to go through quality assurance just like any other product.
Oh yeah. It's good you reminded me, Earl, that as QA testers, you'll also be a part in reproducing customer issues that are found in the field, right? So
Yes.
QA will always be a part in that because they will ask you to reproduce it. Once you're able to reproduce, they will also ask you to verify the fix. Exciting for me because you work with developers who are very knowledgeable and because they're also part in fixing that, right? Because it's a customer issue. But then afterwards, the fix will go to your plate because they will ask you to verify. And then you
Yes.
will be the one who will give a go signal whether it's good to go or not.
Thanks for reminding that, Ateme. So let's debunk this myth that engineers or developers and QA testers are mortal enemies. Is that even true?
No, I don't think that's true because developers and QA collaborate very closely. So when there's a new product or new feature of the product that you are working on, you need to work closely with the developer because you will always have questions for the developer on how a certain product works, right?
Right.
And then if you see an issue, then you need to collaborate for the developer, and the developer will need to take a look at the issue that you're reporting. And then you need to work closely so that they could come up with a fix because you need to help them verify or reproduce the issue that you're seeing. So I think a good team should have developers and QA working together closely. Because
Okay.
if they're mortal enemies, I would say it will be a downfall for the product.
Right. My understanding that this feud happened because there could be a point that QA testers assert that this is the expected behavior of a certain feature of a product while the developers disagree and then they come into a misunderstanding.
Oh, that situation, right? So
Yes.
that situation happens. For me, the correct process is there will be a product manager. If both parties cannot agree on anything, it doesn't mean that you need to fight each
Right.
other. The process is you go to your product manager, have him clarify the behavior, and then both parties will eventually agree. And then everything's fine. Yes.
Yes, yes.
As long as PM clarifies the behavior, it's documented, it's all
Right.
set.
So that sets everything clear. Let's also debunk that the developers are superior than the testers. Your thoughts on that, Anthony?
Because we have our own specialties, right? So I would
Right.
not say that one is inferior than the other, but I can understand that the developer, it's like bigger or heavier responsibility falls on them. So if there's
Yes.
an issue reported by customers and
Yes.
they need to fix, who jumps in first? It's the developers
Right.
because they know the structure from the base to everything. Like they have a clear understanding more on that than QA, right?
Right.
So, though I heard that, fortunately for me, in my 20 years of experience, the developers didn't make me feel that I'm inferior.
That's good.
I understand what you're trying to tell me. But I think it depends on the person. There will always be a developer who will think that way. But then the developers that I worked with are very humble. I think that's my opinion. That's why I cannot say in general that I agree with that myth.
I don't think that one is greater than the other because
Right.
I do also believe that they just need one another because developers can have their own scope in terms of how they see the product and QAs also have a scope of how they see the product. It depending on the level of experience in terms of the product they're working. So
They need to
um
work closely each
yes.
time. There should be a
So
good relationship between developers and the QA. Because if
yes.
not, I don't see it working if there's no teamwork between the members.
I agree with that. So we have debunked all these beliefs. So for those who are aspiring to be in this role, one notable trait that you would have is close attention to detail. So you have to be
Right,
meticulous in
yes.
what you do in terms of the product. You also have to read documents, even though if it's long, and
Oh,
also a
yes, that's a
critical.
requirement.
Oh yes, it's a requirement, even though it may be lengthy. So you would have to bear
Yes.
that. And yes. And as far as I also know, there also needs to be critical thinking because you don't have to limit yourself, not just on the requirements. Sometimes you have to think out of the box. And that mindset is
Yes.
also on a customer perspective. I think that's what's given there. So if there's anything you would like to add on that, Anthony, for what traits that are needed for those who want to take QA testing as a career?
Yeah, I think one important thing is also patience because being a QA can be frustrating. So
Yes,
one simple issue can take several hours to reproduce. And
yes,
then, as you said, you need to think outside the box. It's easy to see it just to look at the functionality, right? But you
yes,
also need to think, okay, what else? What is the settings of the customer that can trigger? What are the other applications that can affect the functionality of your product? You need to see what triggers the issue. Where
yes,
is this? defect coming from? What is the root cause? So you need to factor in.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, Atene, because one crucial factor of being testers, which is finding the root cause, as it actually widens yourself of how you are as a quality tester.
Yeah, so being a QA tester, it means you should develop this capability to help identify the root cause because you can't just report a certain defect like saying, oh, it's not working. Usually they don't like that. You need to help developers by identifying, is it in this component one, component two? You need to look at the logs. If you have access to the logs, you need to look at the logs and see, okay, what's happening? And you need to provide that information to the developer
Right?
because developers have a lot of things to do. And then as a QA, it's your responsibility to provide in your ticket as much info as possible to help them out.
And that's also one important factor that you need to familiarize the product
Yes.
that you are testing. So it's not just plain documentation,
It's not, yes.
but you just also have to play over the tool so that you
Correct,
can
yes.
fully understand.
Because it's not only like a web application, you open Facebook, that's it. You need to understand what's behind that. In QA, I think most of us have access to logging part in the back end, right? So you
Right,
should be able to understand that part, like which log to check. Because there will be
right.
100 lines of logs. You need to check what to look for and put that in your ticket. That will be a
Very
very
Yes, very big help. Very well said, Atene.
yes.
Recently, we also have automated testing. So
Yes.
I just want to ask, were you able to experience automated testing and has it efficiently improved the way you work on things?
Correct. Yes. In one of the companies that I worked in, our process was that we do manual first. Once that's completed, we need to also schedule in the time that we need to automate the feature that we worked on. How it works is that after we finish testing manually, we covered everything and then we approve it. After that, we coordinate with the automation team. We let them know what use cases are needed to automate, and then they do that part for us. So it depends on the company if they want you to do it manually and then automate it. And then there are also companies where you need to test it manually and then they have a team who automates the test for you. So the advantage of that is automation saves time. And then if you need to run regression, you
Yes,
need this automation in place and you need to make sure that nothing has regressed. And having automated scripts improves this process and able to catch more bugs than
right,
doing everything manual because manual cannot cover everything and it takes a
right.
lot of time. Automation is definitely needed because the product is continuously evolving, right? So with each new feature, we need to run regression each time. So having those automation in place greatly helps in covering all those use cases.
That is right, and I totally agree with them. I know this is a trending role. This is like coding for testers. It might sound scary and also challenging because of the coding part. So,
Mm.
can you tell us what you know about automation testing and what advice you can give on how to be able to flourish in the career of automated testing?
So what I can say because these technologies keep on changing, right? So in automation, we always have frameworks and the programming language itself that you need to use. And in the market right now, there are a lot of frameworks and a lot of different languages. So it depends on the company where you're working, like what framework they think will be best in automating their test cases, and also what language is going to be used. So I think, I'm not sure there, but here I know that there are a lot of companies using Python
Yes,
for automating. Oh, okay. And
yes,
also with the framework, I cannot also say which one is the best. However, I think as a QA engineer, it's also part of your role to see which framework and language will best serve your purpose because it depends on also what your goal is in automating the test cases. And if you want to go into this industry of automating, what I can say is continuous learning. Right now, we're very fortunate because if you go YouTube or there are also a lot of online classes which
right.
teaches how to set up frameworks, how to automate using Python or C or depending on what you're going to use. Right now, all of these technologies are on our hands. Like we can just access anything like almost immediately. So what I can advise is try to learn as much as possible. And I think we will be fine in this industry, automation plus manual.
I agree with that. So let's talk about test automation, considering the direction of technology now. Would manual testing at some point become obsolete and automation testing will become the sole focus in the future?
Manual will not totally go away. That's my opinion.
Right.
Automation is very useful. It's a very useful tool so that we can cover a lot of test cases, right? So automation will eventually be there like a necessity. However, manual will also be there because before you automate something, you need to be able to do it manually from a user perspective. And
Right.
then there's something that manual cannot cover. Though automation will grow more and will be needed more, but then for me, manual will always be there.
I actually agree on that, Atime, because for me, whether you look at it, both have its pros and cons. If there's one common con for both are actually prone to error. Manual testing can be prone to error regarding of missed quality checks, I would say, for a product.
Mhm.
Automation can also have its errors depending on the scope it covers that I would say it's unforeseen.
In automation, it's not like when you automate something that's it, right? You need
Right.
to maintain that script because down the road, we cannot say that our product will remain the same. It will continuously evolve. There will be more features. And then if you don't maintain your automation script, eventually it will stop working. If you don't add the new features that's being developed, then again, you will miss a lot of use cases that needs to be automated. And also, what I observed, Earl, is if you're a manual, there are certain features that's hard to automate. It's not like 100% you can automate something. So there's some features in manual, maybe 95% can be automated, but there will always be that 5% that needs manual intervention. That's my point of view. Sometimes there are scenarios that you can cover just on the fly, like ad
Right.
hoc testing. So I think that's
Yeah.
the difference between manual and automation.
We'll see what the future holds because what seems to be impossible now can be possible in the future.
Correct.
So we'll see how it goes in the evolution of testing. So there's also one thing I would like to ask your opinion. Is it possible for AI to go into quality assurance?
Yeah, that's difficult question to answer. But I would say it's possible, but still at some point in time, manual intervention is still required
I
so that
agree.
AI can evolve.
I totally agree
Right.
because AI itself is manual work. So even though if AI tries to act like a human,
Right.
humans are still superior in terms not in
Correct.
terms of
Yes.
rational thinking and also emotional intelligence.
Right. Unless
Yeah,
AI can really replace human itself. But I would say humans are still superior than whatever AI will be developed in the
yeah,
future.
I will agree with that. So that's actually my mindset, and I hope it goes that way in the future
Yes. We hope, right. Yeah.
as technologies evolve. All right, so much of talks in terms of software testing. Let's talk about what are the life lessons that you learned along the way.
In my career, I think I learned a lot of things. But what's important for me is you need to be disciplined when you're working on something. Give your best. And being a QA means it's continuous learning. Don't relax on your achievements, even though you think you learned a lot. Continue learning because technologies will keep on evolving and you want to be up to date on what's coming. If by any chance we get promoted or we have this opportunity to be managers or lead a team, what I can say is be open, mentor, and share your knowledge. And I think lastly, be humble. When you're at the top of the ladder, be humble and then continuously support people who want to enter the industry. Don't discourage them. Encourage them to do better and encourage them that even though they encounter hardships in working as a QA engineer, don't lose hope. Just keep on going. And then eventually they will find their niche.
I agree with those lessons that you learned at the May, and I think those will form into the staying power in whatever thing you're going to, even in the IT industry. So I think that's also the reason why you were able to stay that long. So those are very valuable.
Thank you. Thank you, Earl.
So to wrap this up, what wakes you up early in the morning?
I think as what they say, right? Waking up in itself, it's a blessing. If you have some problems or anything, just think that that too will pass. That too will be resolved. So I think that's my mindset already because I'm not that. young, but then I believe that we wake up because there's no really like specific reason that I need to wake up to, but waking up by itself is a blessing already.
Right.
It's not
And
work, it's not anything that I need to do, it's just waking up.
yes, I would agree because that's what they say. Tomorrow is never promised. So whatever the days that you have, make each day matter and consider waking up as a new beginning, and it's also a gift. Thank you very much, Atene, for taking your time with us.
Thank you also, Earl, for inviting me. Yeah, it's a pleasure for me and it's an honor actually to talk with you.
It's an honor for me as well. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Earl. So we'll see you someday.
We will have to see each other and we'll meet
Yes,
with the
yes.
other testers.
Correct,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Okay, thanks.